Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, May 8th, 2023. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers, as able, are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I have regrets tonight from Councillor Duncan, who is absent. We have, again, something special tonight. Our clerks and team have been lining things up for us, and it's a real pleasure to take care of some of these. I certainly hope we continue to have these great opportunities. I'm going to come forward. Deputy Mayor Kellum is going to join me, and we will make sure we get the camera on the right view here. There we go. To introduce another championship team. Tonight we have a special recognition on the agenda for the local 11U Listowel Legionnaires baseball team. These young men competed in the OBA C provincial tournament and secured an incredible win, a provincial win, right here in Listowel before a home crowd. The 11U Legionnaires had a remarkable 2022 season. Over the course of 4 months, they put up a record of 32, 13, and 0. They were able to top the season off with an incredible provincial run during the Labor Day weekend tournament. A tough loss came in their first game of the tournament with a dreaded walk-off win by their opponent. The team was able then to redeem themselves with 5 straight wins, including a win against their rival Kincardine in extra innings for the championship game. This incredible feat was accomplished in Listowel in front of a spectacular and supportive home crowd. Congratulations to the 11U Listowel Legionnaires on their OBAC Provincial Championship win in 2022. Now, Deputy Mayor Kellum will be the individual who will pass out the medals. He'll put them around your necks. I hope he doesn't pull too tight. All right. So our team members, we're going to start with the coaching team. We're going to ask you all to stay up here. The coaches can form up in a row in front of the mayor's table, and the team members can come around us. The counselors will be interacting with you before this experience is over, and there'll be an opportunity for photos for parents at some point in this exercise. So our team members, let's deal with the coaches first. Rob Martin, congratulations. I didn't realize they let you get away from the bank. Austin McCourt.
I know, right? Used to coach his fellow.
All right. Lots of connections. Congratulations. Nate Morwood. Nate, congratulations. Brendan McGee. Brendan, out here tonight. And Kyle Hollinger. Kyle, congratulations. Nice to meet you. And the team, Tice Hayter. Tice, congratulations. Marshall Walls. Thank you, Marshall. Zach Brooks. Congratulations. Oliver Morwood. Congratulations. Tucker Fruch. Congratulations. Rory McGee. Congratulations. Carter Williams. Congratulations. Patrick Heenan. Not here tonight. Not with us tonight. Patrick McGee. Congratulations. Jack McGee. Cohen Martin. And Declan Cressman. Congratulations. These are the Championship 11U Listowel Legionnaire baseball team. Now, what we usually do, you have to put up with more handshakes, is we invite council to walk through and shake all of your hands and extend their congratulations. So, councilors, please come around.
I know this guy.
Yeah, I know. I need to know a few of these, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, Councillor Anstead was hoping that you would have one more in you. So, this year again would be good. All right, what we're going to do is take photographs. Deputy Mayor Kellum and I will join the team because that's, I guess, our privilege. And the rest of the councillors will get in behind on the stage there, and we'll allow photographers, anyone who wishes to come forward. Where they go.
Okay.
You're going to be there, Doug? All right. There we go. Yeah.
Don't sit in front of Nate. You won't be able to see Nate. Even Carter. Even Carter. Even Carter's got
There we go.
one
All
year
right.
you guys are just passing.
There we go. All right, councillors, can you be seen? Need to be able to see them. All right. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Who? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Is our delegate here? Okay. All right, let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing. to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Colleagues, do any of you wish to make a declaration at this hour? I am seeing no expression of same. That allows us to give just some brief ground rules here for the rest of the meeting. All participants are invited to speak when called upon by yours truly, serving as chair. Those participating remotely who wish to speak may draw the attention of the clerk through our conferencing technology's text chat function. Remote participants are asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize your right to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or are having some technical difficulty, I will advise. Let us now focus on the people's business. I invite those in the chamber to silence and put away their phones. I further invite decorum. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Councillor Blazek will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We're waiting for our technology to catch up with us. It's funny how our patience level has changed with technology, isn't it? All right, thank you. Let's move to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 17 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any correction to the minutes that you'd like to see made? Councillor Rothwell, welcome. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Good evening, council and public. I'd like to pull and discuss item 3.17, the Enbridge gas regarding locate charges, please.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with an item to extract from the agenda for discussion? Okay, with council's indulgence, then I think what we'll do is we'll have a look at Councillor Rothwell's request first, and then we'll consider the whole of the agenda in the aftermath of that. Councillor Rothwell, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. And council, you may recall that this council did express concerns regarding a letter some months ago from Enbridge Gas regarding charges for locates along our rights of way, and especially for municipalities, this could be a costly endeavor. I appreciate that Enbridge Gas has written back, and with council's agreement, the last paragraph on page 43 of the agenda is Enbridge encourages us to call upon the government of Ontario to enact a dedicated locator model for large infrastructure owners and to support a phased approach to regulation adoption. So if council agrees, I would suggest that would be an appropriate reaction or response to ensure that, in fact, municipalities are not undertaking large costs immediately, if at all, regarding locates within our rights of way. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on this one before we consider how and if we proceed? Okay. Councillor Rothwell, I gather your intention is to have council endorse a resolution that would send a letter to the Government of Ontario, pretty much the wording that is in this letter from Enbridge, I think I would entertain a motion. Is that what your
I so
desire is?
move, and to make it simple, the wordsmithing would be very similar to what is the last paragraph, save and except maybe the last sentence. Anyways, I think that would be appropriate, and I'm willing to move that.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Rothwell that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth calls upon the Government of Ontario to enact a dedicated locator model for large infrastructure owners and to support a phased approach to regulation adoption. Can I call for a seconder? Councillor Richardson will second that. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, if the clerk's table is giving me the nod, then let's have that vote. Okay, and that's carried. Anyone further with an extraction or a change before we consider the regular resolution for the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, then I do have a resolution for consideration as follows: that consent items 3.1 to 3.17 be received for information and the minutes of the May 1st, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, we move forward then to agenda item number 4, which allows us to hear delegations and hold public meetings. No public meetings tonight, but we do have one delegation that has appealed to council for an opportunity. I'll remind the delegation that in accordance with the council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. The delegate is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation form, and deviations from the topic are not acceptable to the chair or to council. As always, we expect respect and courtesy. Our delegation tonight pertains to the subject of homelessness and bylaw enforcement. We are joined by Kyle Girodat of Listowel. Mr. Girodat, please approach the podium. Turn on the microphone. It looks like it's off, or the clerk will help you with that. And you're welcome to make your presentation. Welcome.
So, this is my first council meeting here, so give me a second. Very nicely done at the start here, the anthem, and then your quote about respecting each other and the land. I appreciate that, and that's why I'm here today. Not only that, you honored the youth for their achievements, and that those are also linked to what I'm about to talk about, which is the homelessness in Listowel. So what I've noticed is there is a large movement of homeless into Listowel from Kitchener in the spring. And they build camps, and the camps aren't monitored, and they leave a lot of garbage. I understand that homeless people need a place to live or need a place to stay, and that they have chosen Listowel. The issue is that they're not monitored, or if they are monitored, they're monitored poorly. So I've called bylaw before, and I've said, hey, there's a ton of garbage at this homeless encampment. I'm not looking for them to be moved. I'm just looking for the garbage to be cleaned up. The rebuttal I get is, we can't clean up the garbage because they're still there. So I'm here today to ask, why? Because if you can build a fire, if you can build a cabin, you can clean up your garbage. My daughter's 2.5 years old. She knows how to take her garbage and put it in the garbage can. Why can't they? Right now, today, there's a spot near Erie Meats. Someone has built a little cabin there. the garbage can was 25 feet away, and he threw all of his garbage down the embankment and into the river. He just didn't want to walk there. Why? Because there's no consequence. So that's why I'm here today, because there's no consequence being given to these people, but yet the homeowners are given consequences. I had a camper on my front yard, my private property. I had a camper there. Bylaw asked me to move it. I moved it. But there's no difference between my camper on my front property and that homeless person's cabin in that bush. Now that cabin's been there for 5 months, all winter. No one's been there. It's moldy. Bylaw had it set up to be moved. Then Stratford Housing came in and said, no, you can't move it. Coincidentally, the same day that Bylaw called Stratford Housing to have this looked at to make sure no one was living there, the gentleman, Alan, who built it, came back, took his garbage from inside the hut and threw it all about. So now it's just about everywhere, and no one is allowed to touch it or clean it. So my question is, why is Stratford Housing involved with the North Perth? Why am I being discriminated against? Because I'm a homeowner. Why a camper has to move? Their structure should have to move. And also, why do you have to have them leave before it's cleaned up? It would be easy enough to just have the bylaw, the police, go there with some garbage cans and say, guys, you need to clean this up. If you don't clean it up, we're going to schedule it to be cleaned up in a week. Whatever's left over gets cleaned up. And that's why I'm leaving that to you, because I just don't understand why it's gotten to the point that I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Girodat, is that the end of your formal
Yes.
presentation? Okay, thank you. Let me turn to CEO Snell. CEO Snell, did you have any feedback with regards to staff actions or various agency actions with regards to Mr. Girodat's concerns?
So yes, correct. Certainly, homeless is a complex issue that almost every municipality in Ontario is dealing with, and there are certainly no simple or easy answers. However, under at present, the municipality is operating under council guidance to be supportive of the homeless by trying to get everybody housed and appropriate support for everybody. We have activated a homeless task force that does bring staff together from several municipal and community agencies, including the City of Stratford, because that is our housing manager for the province of Ontario, to work with the homeless. Several agencies in our community are dealing directly with the homeless members of our community, and sites are visited regularly by various staff of the agencies. We do attempt to work with the homeless to keep encampments clean. However, it is a challenge, but we do continue to work with the homeless to keep encampments clean. And at times we have cleaned up encampments. We cleaned up 4 last year, and we have 3 scheduled to be cleaned up this year.
May I comment?
Go ahead.
I just don't know the actual term that you would have me ask that with. So, where are those 3 encampments that you have planned to be cleaned up?
I can't answer that, actually.
Okay, because I actually put in 3 requests for 3 encampments to be cleaned up, and they are all back along the Erie meets Bush, and I called last summer for each of them to say, we need to get on this and clean this up. That place is a flood zone. It's actually used for overflow water. And when it floods, all the garbage goes in the river. And I found needles, glass, tons of stuff in the rivers. I understand that it is difficult, but my main question is why do they have to be gone from the encampment before it can be cleaned? Because that's what I'm struggling with. Whenever I call bylaw. Bylaw says, well, we have to have them out of there before we can clean it. But why?
CEO Snell, did you want to offer any further comment on this?
I guess my response would be they don't have to be gone for the encampment to be cleaned or tidied up. That is just the time that generally the staff from the municipality go in and clean up the encampment. Agencies work with the homeless, as I said, under a caring, compassionate model to keep the encampments clean while they're being used. Not always successful. Sometimes it takes several visits, but that, I mean, first of all, it depends on which property the encampment is located on. It's not the municipality's business to enter private property doing encampment cleanups. That would be only public property that we would enter on to do encampment cleanups. And unless there's an order placed on by the municipality. So I'm not sure that they have to be gone before we would do an encampment cleanup, but it's usually not necessarily the bylaw that's enforcing the encampment cleanup. It is the task force that is setting the direction on this with input of several local agencies and the municipal staff. That does include bylaw.
So then that.
One more.
Go. So then with that, when you said private property and you're not allowed to clean it up because it's someone's private property, we have a ton of bylaws. If I have a pile of garbage on my front yard, I'm going to have a neighbor call. The neighbor's going to call bylaw. They're going to say, come clean up your property. We have bylaws for that. Erie Meats had homeless people in their bush for years until David Hearst burnt down his 7-foot cabin and made like a 20-foot fire in there, which I warned everybody about. I called bylaw, I called the fire department. I said he's having huge fires back there. Now, I don't know it was David, but it was David's cabin. So I'd just like to clarify that. Now, why was Erie Meats allowed to have all of this garbage on their property when a citizen's calling and saying, hey, there's this garbage here? They're breaking bylaws. Is it that they have more money than I do? That sorry, that's rude. Why did they get away with that for so many years? That's a question I have.
CEO Snell, did you wish to comment?
I'm certainly not going to get into a debate at an open council meeting about specific cases. That's not appropriate. Certainly, I can just reassure council that we're trying as again to try and act compassionately and caring and get people the housing and supports they need in our community. It's a common misconception that the homeless people in our community are not from our community. The vast majority of the homeless in our community either are from North Perth or have a connection to North Perth. And we try and work with them, with all the agencies, including the OPP, the hospital, Salvation Army, City of Stratford, and other agencies to try and get them the support that they need to get the appropriate housing that everybody should have.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll wrap it there if you don't mind.
I'd just like to say I agree with him that I shouldn't have brought that up at the council meeting as it shouldn't have been a debate. My apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Girardet. We've taken note of the circumstances that you've described, and I'm going to ask council at this point, is there a will that council would like to express on this matter at this time? Councillor Blazek, let me find your mic. There we go.
I do have a question. The task force, do they report or provide a report? Not in my time. Have they provided a report to council on what their plan is, what their goals are, that sort of thing?
And certainly it's evolved. We've been meeting for about, I'm going to say, a little bit over a year now. And so it has evolved, and we've actually been growing in numbers as we've looked into the issue. So we haven't provided any formal reports back to council, but that's something we certainly could do.
I think I would like to request that if we could, please.
All right, so Councillor Blazak has suggested that we direct staff to bring back a report with regards to the work of the task force that is addressing homelessness in our community. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Sorry. Anyone in council have comments? All right. Clerk's table, you're with us. All right, let's have a vote on that. Okay, and that's carried unanimously. Any other will of council on this matter? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Mr. Girardet, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for your time.
All right. That allows us to turn to agenda item number 5, reports from departments and key staff. We have no reports from the CAO's department this evening. That means next up is item 5.2, reports from the strategic initiatives portfolio. Tonight we have a single report brought to this table by our Manager of Strategic Initiatives. As item 5.2.1, our Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Jessica McLean, brings forward a report which proposes completing our first efforts to formulate a North Perth Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Standing Committee, with the making of citizen appointments to the committee proposed. Ms. McLean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, Council. The public recruitment process for the newly established North Perth Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee launched in late March and closed in early April. Recruitment was very successful with 16 applications being received from the community. Community member applications for the committee were reviewed by the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CAO, and Manager of Strategic Initiatives. Recommended appointees are included in the appointment bylaw attached to the report, and we are pleased that the majority of the equity-seeking groups listed in the terms of reference are represented in the proposed meeting composition, or the proposed committee composition, As well, the first meeting of the North Perth DEI Advisory Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, May 23rd at 7 p.m., and I can answer any questions Council may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. McLean. Colleagues, questions, first comments on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I have a bylaw enablement resolution for our consideration as follows. That bylaw number 48-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 147-2022, which appoints persons, including council members, to various boards, committees, and associations, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. The said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston will serve as mover. Councillor Anstett will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Ms. McLean.
Thank you.
And Councillor Blazek is happy that she has some colleagues now. All right, let's move to item 5.3, reports from the Corporate Services Department. In item 5.3.1, staff has brought forward a report proposing the endorsement of an agreement with the Government of Ontario pertaining to the receipt of dedicated gas tax funds to support a continuing local transportation initiative managed by the VON. I'll call on North Perth Director of Finance, Fran Hale, to review this report. Welcome, Ms. Hale.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. As mentioned, the province of Ontario has graciously provided more dedicated gas tax funding for public transportation program for this year. We have been accumulating quite an amount. Currently, our deposits on hand are $671,147.96. And just to let you know that VON are planning on purchasing a vehicle this year. and another one next year. I think they were hoping to do some replacement work. So this money will go to that cause. And at this time, we just need to have council consider entering into a letter of agreement with the Minister of Transportation on behalf of His Majesty the King of Right of the Province of Ontario.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hale. Any questions or first comments about this one? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Fran, for the report. Can you enlighten us, Council, just in terms of why the number is the same as it was in 2 previous years? Well, yeah, 2 previous years, as opposed to growth and then decline during the start of the pandemic. It seems odd to me that when gas prices are on the increase, the number stays the same.
I cannot, but I will find out for you.
I appreciate
and
that.
I will
Thank you.
report back.
Okay.
I think there was a leveling off, but I'll confirm that.
Okay. Anyone further with questions or first comments? All right, I have a resolution for this bylaw as follows, that bylaw number 49-2023, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a letter of agreement with His Majesty the King in right of the Province of Ontario, represented by the Minister of Transportation for the Province of Ontario, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and the Clerk. Do we have to seal it with the seal of the corporation? I assume maybe. Yes, the clerk is nodding yes. Thank you. So that resolution's a little bit juiced up. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Blazek, thank you. Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hale. Nice to have you back with us. We have no reports from the Programs Department tonight as item 5.4. Further, we have no reports from the Facilities Department tonight as item 5.5. Likewise, item 5.6 we get to skip past tonight. No reports from the Environmental Services Department, which brings us to item 5.7, reports from our Manager of Operations, and that department also doesn't have a report tonight. Council is having a nice, easy meeting, I suppose. So let's move down to item 5.8, reports from the Development and Protective Services Department. As item 5.8.1, Council is invited to forward a recommendation to approve with a collection of conditions to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate related to an application requesting consent to sever lands in the Wallace Ward of the Municipality of North Perth, owned by parties Voskamp and represented by Julianne von Westerholt. County of Perth Planner Jerica Gilbert, who works on North Perth files, stands before us this evening to give us an overview of this action and the recommendations from staff. Welcome, Planner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm glad to be here tonight. As we just heard, this is for consent B19-22. It's on line 87, which is about northwest of Listowel and west of Gowanstown. And it's in the rural countryside in an agricultural natural resource and primary and secondary aggregate resources designation. Now, normally when we have severances in the countryside, there's surplus farm dwelling severances, and that's going to be my next application for you tonight. But this one's an interesting one. So what happened here is that there was something what we call a merger on title. So under the Planning Act, if you have two lots that are outside of a plan of subdivision, so this doesn't happen generally in settlement areas, but if you have two lots adjacent to one another and you put ownership into the same name, the Planning Act will cause them to merge. And this can actually be a very useful tool. It can help us take care of undersized lots in rural areas. It can also be a bit of a nuisance because the Planning Act doesn't provide us with tools to reverse a merger. So we have to assess the lots from modern planning principles. which is what we're going to do here tonight. And planning staff do believe that this lot meets the conditions for a consent. So what we're looking at is the lot creation policies and the provincial policy statement, which are generally restrictive in prime agricultural areas, except when you can demonstrate that you have lot creation for agricultural purposes, and the lots are of a considerable size that they are common for the type of agriculture practice in the area, and they allow flexibility should the farm operator want to diversify or intensify or any such thing. In this circumstance, can I go back? Yep. In this circumstance, we're looking to create 2 original lots of record, so that's 40.5 hectares each, with about 300 meters of frontage on line 87. So these lots are of a sufficient size to support 2 farm operations on both. The only kinks that we come to are in the official plan policy. So that's section 5.6.2.1, which reflects a lot of the provincial policy statements on farm size and discouraging lot creation under that 40.5 hectares. But another condition is that it has to meet the requirements of the implementing municipality zoning bylaw. And in this circumstance, we have a unique scenario where we have an agricultural designation, which is good, the natural resource and environmental designation, and for those of us who are familiar with the North Perth zoning bylaw, agricultural zones can count NRE zones as part of the lot area. However, what the zoning bylaw doesn't allow is for mineral aggregate resources to be counted as part of the lot area. In this case, we had a former aggregate pit that was established in the 1990s. The pit has since been ceased to be in production, and the Voss camps have no intentions of carrying that on, and they are in talks with the Ministry of Natural Resources to surrender their license. So in order to fulfill the consent conditions, we need to ask them to rezone from mineral resources to either agriculture or natural resource environment, and the applicants have agreed to that. Another condition is that they meet the minimum distance separation setbacks. So as you can see from the image on the left, those are the farms within 750 meters that have livestock facilities. And on the right, we have the farms that have setback distances touching the subject lands. And as we can see, there is going to be more than enough of a buffer between these facilities and the new lots. Notice was given on April 14th by the usual means. That's the placement of a sign on the property and a mail out. We have not received any feedback from the public, and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority has had no objections to the severance since there is sufficient lands outside of the flood zone that's located on the property. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Planner Gilbert. Colleagues, any questions or first comments about this one? A little different. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So let's have a look at the resolution then. The resolution is as follows, that Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approves consent application file B19-22 filed by Julianne von Westerholt on behalf of Anne and Daryl Voskamp, affecting lands described as lots 39 and 40, concession 3, 6426 line 87, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, subject to the following conditions. And there are 7 conditions that are recommended on behalf of North Perth. I'm going to trust that you can see them in the council package and have informed yourself about these. Given that, can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you, and Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Perhaps I should raise this earlier. Just a question for Planner Gilbert. Jerica, will the county undertake to amend the the new official plan working to remove the mineral aggregate resource designation as a result of that? I know you talked about a zoning bylaw amendment to remove the MAR zone, but if in fact they are surrendering the license, will the county undertake to remove the designation of the new plan?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yes, I can't say what they will do during the official plan process. The reason why an official plan amendment wasn't considered as part of this application is the mineral aggregate policies within the official plan do permit agricultural uses, and our aggregate zoning that is in the official plan is actually in the agricultural zone in most cases. It's just because this one was a licensed pit that it had that mineral aggregate resource zone put on it. But regardless of whether or not we remove the primary or aggregate, primary or secondary aggregate resources designation from the property, so long as it meets the zoning, it will meet the policies of the new lot creation under the official plan, if that makes sense.
Thanks very much. I understand that the consultant and the planning department are, when they are reviewing the mineral aggregate resource designations, they are looking as to whether or not there's an active license or not, and if the license is being surrendered with the and the Minister of Natural Resources is in agreement with that, it would be appropriate then that in fact we would be removing the designation if in fact there's no more licensed aggregate there. So that's just a suggestion that perhaps the county can note for the official plan. Not that that would be the responsibility of the applicant, but that as a sort of a housekeeping amendment would be appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, anyone further? All right, this item has been duly moved and seconded. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Stay right there. As item 5.8.2, Council is invited to forward a recommendation to approve with a collection of conditions to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate an application requesting consent to sever lands in the Wallace Ward of the Municipality of North Perth filed by John Caterberg on behalf of Hill Spring Farm. County of Perth Planner Jerica Gilbert remains in front of us and will present on this one as well. Planner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, we're staying in the same neighborhood tonight. We're still, so this is up on line 89. It's north of Listowel and west of Palmerston, and it's very close to the Perth-Wellington border. And surrounding land uses are agricultural in nature. This is a more familiar application to us since it's a surplus farm dwelling severance. The severed residential lot will be 1.2 acres with 48 meters of frontage on line 89, and it contains a house as the only structure. Retained farmland will be 27.6 hectares, 68.2 acres, with 609.6 meters of broken frontage on line 89. Once again, we had no objection from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. There are a portion of watercourse that goes through the property that they're not concerned about. And the planning department believes that the surplus farm dwelling severance meets the policies of section 5.6.3.1 of the official plan. It is surplus to the Caterberg's home farm operation where they have 2 dwelling units already. This structure was actually one of their parents and who have since passed on, and it's been tenanted and they're just not interested in keeping it anymore. The house is over 10 years old and it's habitable, meets MDS requirements, and there's no livestock operations on the lands. And the new residential lot is limited to a minimum size to accommodate the existing residence, septic, bed, and well with no prime agricultural land lost. Here's just a few pictures of the back of the property, and you can see that the old bank barn has been removed. I took these pictures in a very different season, if anyone was curious about the corn. And the planning department is recommending approval, and we have received no feedback from the public, with public notice being given on April 14th, similar to the other applications. So happy to take questions or comments, and thank you for allowing me to present this one.
All right, thank you, Planner Gilbert. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this one? I'm not seeing any, so let's consider the resolution then as follows. The Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approves consent application file B11-23, filed by John Caterberg of Hill Springs Farm, affecting lands described as Part Lot 38 to 40, Concession 7, known as 6392 Line 89, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, subject to the following conditions. There are 7. Again, colleagues, I trust that you have considered them in preparing for the meeting tonight and that I will not read them into the record. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate further on this one? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Planner Gilbert. Good to see you again. All right, that allows us to move down to item 6 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing to request reports of staff or of our committees at this hour? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I've just been reflecting on our delegation this evening and the fact that we have asked you for a report from our homelessness committee, which is great. I think that's important. I guess I'm also reflecting on the opportunity perhaps to get more information maybe from our Stratford agency partners, which were referenced this evening. We do have social services that work, like through Stratford, that work with our folks who are experiencing homelessness, and I'm not sure if it might warrant having some reports from them. My feeling is that the bulk of the work is being done by social services versus our task force. So I'm not sure if that's a consideration. As a councillor, I have been hearing other comments from other residents with some of their concerns around homelessness in our community. And I know that our residents are looking for some kinds of, a better understanding perhaps, and also a better understanding of what local governments are doing and local agencies are doing to support this concern. So I would be happy to hear CEO Snell's opinion on perhaps some reports from social services as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Before I call on him, just sort of a quick comment that when we're dealing with homelessness, as CAO Snell said earlier, it's a very complex and multi-layered kind of issue. One of the things that's really interesting to me about the homeless situation in our community is that communication and how we approach communication to the public, who at times get frustrated with either side, whether, if there are sides in this, they get frustrated with both non-enforcement and over-enforcement in some cases. But communication is quite a complex issue because we're talking about many sensitive items of information about individuals that probably should not be revealed. And in fact, our delegate at points did reveal some names which probably was not necessary to the understanding by this council of the issues that were at stake. So I think part of what you're asking, if I'm following your question theme, is how are we doing in terms of communicating what's happening around the homelessness file? And I hate to even look at it that way, but around homelessness in our community. And perhaps CAO Snell can direct some of his comments there as well, as with regards to our interaction with social services, which is very much at that staff task force table. CAO Snell?
If I could just add to that, one of the concerns that residents have been sharing with me is that there's a misconception in my mind that the whole world is coming to Listowel, North Perth, to seek refuge as a homeless person. And I believe that, CAO Snell actually, mentioned the fact that, that's a misconception, but that is part of a misunderstanding perhaps and could be part of future communications. So yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
CAO Snell?
One of the things that we've put on our North Perth website is actually information page on homelessness. So there's a ton of information there for the public to go to, sort of frequently asked questions, who to contact when they have experiences with homeless people, and how they can help. So that is available on our website, and we're continuing to add to that page as well. The City of Stratford is coming next Tuesday night to the Housing Forum, and this will be part of their presentation actually. So we're dealing with the whole spectrum of housing, which does include homelessness, unfortunately. And hopefully, a subject we don't have to talk about, but we will be next Tuesday. So there's certainly going to be an opportunity to ask the city staff any questions next Tuesday night. And I will say, and it's difficult to start talking about numbers, but we probably are really at a low in recent years with people living rough in our community. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean we're doing a great job, because we don't know how many people are living precariously, i.e. couch surfing. So I don't think there's a whole lot of good things happening if we just move people from living rough to couch surfing. That's not a solution to the overall problem of providing appropriate housing. So I don't think this is an epidemic in North Perth. It certainly is not happening elsewhere. Lots of other communities much smaller and are dealing with much greater numbers. But it's certainly something that I think as a community we all have to work together on to come up with an overall solution. But certainly happy to keep the discussion going. And like again, City of Stratford is coming next Tuesday night.
It does seem that will be a fine opportunity to ask some more questions and sort of collect information from them that is appropriate for our understanding of the scope of the issue and more importantly, the scope of the service that they're providing, right? There are times, of course, when I interact with this issue a little more intimately as mayor, and so I have more frequent briefings than many on council about this subject, in part because of my interest in seeing that the homeless are housed. So, next Tuesday we'll provide a prime opportunity to ask questions freely of our team and find out the kinds of things that are being done. But my own sense is that there is a lot of momentum and, in fact, a lot of improvement over the last year with regards to our homelessness situation as a result of the work of this task force. So, Councillor Andreessen, a little further.
Yes, thank you. I just want to share my, I guess my concern about how complex this issue is. And I feel empathy for our residents who did a delegation this evening. I really, really do. And I think the problem is the complexity, which we are all recognizing, that there is no one perfect solution. And it's just an entity that involves so many agencies and groups working together, as well as local governments, of course, and by law to support these issues with homelessness. And I almost feel helpless, when we have delegations like this, that it's hard to provide a response that is going to be acceptable to the public when it is so complex. So, yeah, I'm not sure how else to address our citizens when they are, expressing concerns of this nature. Thank you.
It can be intimidating, even for us who are stewards of our whole community, to interact with these issues, and so keeping track of all the sort of moving parts and all the challenges that arise it's a substantial job, no question about it. I think I trust that you, as well as I, look forward to this special council meeting a week Tuesday, right? Not this Tuesday, but a week Tuesday, for the opportunities it will present us to sort of consider how we can be engaged appropriately as a municipal government in these files. And I look forward to the information that gets shared there. Mm-hmm. Can I assume then that you're okay with not requesting a report at this point, that Councillor Blazek's earlier motion sort of covers a significant piece of the puzzle, and that next Tuesday we'll grant everyone the opportunity to ask questions and get the information clarified? Is that okay?
Yeah,
you want to wait till after that point, maybe?
I think my hope is that our discussion around housing will address some of these issues that we're speaking of. If after that session we need to explore these issues further, it may be something that we'll have to bring up in subsequent meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense. Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else looking for reports from either staff or from committees? Okay, we have, then we can move on to item 7. We have 2 items of correspondence that warrant our review and or action tonight. The first is from the school board, from Avon-Maitland District School Board, inviting attendance at a future meeting of this council. They want to send delegates here for the purpose of providing updates and exploring common issues of interest. The suggestion clearly is they have a date that they would prefer to be here, and would we entertain that? Colleagues, how are we feeling about this request? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I carefully read the correspondence from Avon-Maitland District School Board, and they made reference to their hope to discuss the need to make our community, welcoming for newcomers, also for the benefit of economic development and filling gaps in our job market, and diversifying our workforce. I think what I would also like to see, and perhaps we could send some correspondence back if possible, is from an economic development perspective to encourage Avon-Maitland District School Board to have more discussions with students to stay in our community, to stay here and retain them as citizens and residents who can contribute to our workforce here. I think this would be part of a really good conversation during their presentation, and I'm wondering if perhaps it might be worthwhile to send those comments to them prior to their presentation so they could be prepared, because there has been messaging in this community to our students that there are no opportunities here, that opportunities are not in North Perth. And I'd like to see that whole frame of mind in education change so that we can encourage our students to indeed stay here and retain residency here and be part of our workforce right here in North Perth.
Okay, so if I'm following your suggestion here, then you would like to suggest, one, that yes, council suggests that they come on the, what was it, the 19th?
Yes. June 19th.
On that day in June. For the purpose of a delegation, I think if they're going to come, they may want a little more time than our usual 10 minutes, so we may have to consider that as a possibility, and that you would like them to offer comments about their potential role in youth retention in our community. Does that sound right?
Yes, that's exactly what I would like to have sent to them as well, to prepare when they come.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this matter at this point? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And further to Councillor Andreessen's comments, of course, my wife, Nancy, is the chair of the school board. And 3 weeks ago, she was president of the High Skills Major event that was held at Connect Ontario Equipment, just north of Listowel here. Students in that program were on as part of the presentation at Connect Ontario, where they were talking about technicians and others were talking specifically about the needs for high skills in agriculture, specifically to equipment. So I can say specifically, and certainly the school board will be able to talk very clearly about this and other issues within our community, that they are doing that. High skills major in agriculture is just a recent addition to the high skills major offered within our community. So I believe that the school board is trying to address some of those issues, and clearly they'll talk more specifically about that. But as Councillor Andreessen notes, there's plenty of other issues for conversation within North Perth, specifically in terms of school accommodation, which was certainly a highlight of conversation here in the last 2 to 3 years. So I'm sure they'll be talking about this, and I'm sure they'll appreciate more than just a 10-minute conversation, and as will we. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm thinking that perhaps if we're going to pass a resolution here, that we should consider advising them ahead of time that we're prepared to waive the 10-minute discussion period and for delegations, and that we're actually genuinely interested in sort of an integration opportunity between the school board and our council to talk about issues of mutual interest. So I think we should frame, a clause or something in a resolution that we would consider to that end, that we intend to give signals that we would give them more runway than 10 minutes. And I do think we should probably include that we would like to consider the subject of youth retention as per Councillor Andreessen's comments as well. When I think ahead to that meeting, which I kind of look forward to if council will consent to it, I do think that we will want to have sort of relaxed rules so that we can have more open discussion about some of the things that are on both of our council's mind and on the mind of our school board leaders. So does that seem reasonable? Clerk Klein, you sort of following my bouncing ball there? Okay, sort of. She's sort of gently nodding her head. So I'm starting to read how Clerk Klein responds. All right, so let's sort of polish this resolution now at this point then. We have a resolution that says that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth invites representatives from the Avon-Maitland District School Board to appear as a delegation at the June 19th, 2023 Council meeting, and further that Council commits to waiving the usual 10-minute delegation period to allow a fulsome discussion, and further that Council invites the representatives from the school board to speak about a topic of our interest, youth retention. Mm-hmm. Sound okay, Sarah? She's sort of half nodding too. The two of you teaching each other these nods, I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of that. All right. Moved by Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have a vote. Youth retention, it should say.
That should have been retention.
Not relocation. We don't want to relocate them. We want them to stay here.
Not relocation.
Sorry for my flagrant violation of procedural rules and talking during the vote, but it should say retention, not relocation. All right, that's carried, assuming that we meant retention. Thank you. In item 7.2, then, we have received correspondence from Listowel Curling Club. I had a little conversation about this. They have some needs, certainly at this point in time. They are going to file a capital funding grant application with the Ontario Trillium Fund, and they would very much appreciate endorsement by letter of support for their project. So I think we have a resolution that's in the books here as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth provides a resolution of support to the Listowel Curling Club as part of their application to the Ontario Trillium Fund for a capital funding grant to assist with the cost of various upgrades within the club. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. I think that's good news for them. Let's turn to our attention to bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight we have as item 8.1 the proposition that we acknowledge that portions of Kincaid Street west of Highway 23 are now a public highway. This does not intend highway in that conventional everyday use, but that it's a road that we're owning and taking responsibility for. And those include maintenance responsibilities. Things obviously are nicely evolved over there at this point in time. So I have a bylaw enablement resolution to that end. Bylaw number 49-2023 being a bylaw to establish a public highway, be introduced, read, and considered ready for second and third time, and be finally passed. And said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Councillor Anstett will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. That means Kincaid is ours. All right, that brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion tonight? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. So specifically, I had committed to have a draft notice of motion, which I was not able to get on this agenda, specifically regarding the need for the help of municipalities, help from the province regarding chief building officials and building inspectors. I will undertake to have that ready for our next meeting prior to our agenda cutoff. So my apologies not having it on this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of having that resolution, do we consider notice given, or is that not given until we see its text? Question for the clerk.
Mr. Mayor, the procedure bylaw is pretty clear that a notice of motion should be filed in writing with the clerk and placed on the agenda. If the motion is included on next week's agenda, council could consent to waiving the notice period and discuss the motion at that time rather than waiting to the following council meeting.
Great. I think there's a 2/3 vote in there somewhere, as I recall. Yes. Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the update then, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else wishing leave to give notice of motion tonight? All right, that brings us to item 10 on our agenda. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community and that reflect well on North Perth at this time? And certainly if we have anyone connected remotely still in our web conference, they're welcome to join the parade if there's a parade. Anyone with announcements for the community? All right, I'm not seeing any at this point. That brings us to agenda item number 11. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council tonight. That means we can skip past item 12, which is normally where we would report on what we did in a closed session to the degree allowable by our agreements. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. For item 13.1, I have the draft of the confirmatory bylaw number 51-2023, which reads as follows: that bylaw number 51-2023 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordham. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Colleagues, we have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that came before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a motion to that effect as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 8:21 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, May 15th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously, which is always a good thing for adjournment. Colleagues, that means our next regular council meeting is Monday, May 15th, 2023. Until that date, this meeting is adjourned.